This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
So why do seagulls live near the sea? Because if they lived near the bay, they'd be bagels. Welcome to Wings and Things, where you'll find real answers to real questions about everything you want to know about pet birds. Care, feeding, bird products, travel, and more. Everything to make your frequent flyer a happy camper. From parrots to parakeets, cockatiels to cockatoos, you'll have a bird's eye view of everything there is to know about your fun, feathered friends. So, spread your wings and get ready to fly on Wings and Things.
Welcome to Wings and Things on Pet Life Radio.
We're your hosts, Barbara Heidenreich from Good Bird Inc.
and Robin Shawokis of the Leather Elves. Today's topic is exploring different forms of training and enrichment. Training should always be firmly based on positive reinforcement techniques, and enrichment should always be based on naturalistic behaviors, but the possibilities are endless.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Sitting on a branch overlooking the parking lot, the pigeons watched as a Mercedes pulled in below them. What do you think? One bird said to the other. Should we put a deposit on that car? Stay perched. Wings and Things will be soaring back right after these messages.
What if you could protect the life of your cat with something so simple and affordable that you already use every day? Get ready for the evolution of kitty litter. It's Pretty Litter. Along with all the features you've come to expect from your kitty litter, Pretty Litter's patented and scientific formula will also monitor your cat's health and detect illnesses early while providing industry-leading odor control. 2 kitty litters, same cat, same price. But there's one important difference. Pretty Litter reacts to your cat's waste by detecting health issues simply by changing color. And the key is that Pretty Litter detects these issues before your cat shows symptoms of physical illness or pain, likely saving you major dollars in vet bills while protecting the health of your cat. What do you think, little guy? Ready to switch litter? Pretty Litter. Colorful insight into your cat's health.
Go to prettylittercats.com/cat101 or use coupon code CAT101 to get 20% off your first subscription order.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
A Frenchman walks into a bar with a parrot on his shoulder. The bartender asks, "Where did you get that thing?" The parrot replies, "In France. There are millions of them." Don't have a canary. Wings and Things is back.
Welcome back to Wings and Things on Pet Life Radio.
Today's topic is enrichment and training, Barbara, and we're talking about different ways you can do things. And I always tell people, variety is the spice of life. There are just so many things that you can do with enrichment and really try to make things different.
You mean it isn't just putting in a new toy every single day or week or month?
It's not just about the toy anymore. That's so very important. I think we get stuck in that. Well, I did my enrichment job. I went to the pet store and I bought a new toy and I put it in, but that's not enough. It has to be more than that. People need to think. I think the phrase is think outside the cage.
And what exactly does that mean, Robin?
But don't let them go. Someone said to me once, you can't say that because it means you just want to let all the birds go. And that's not true.
Well, that would be highly enriching.
This is true.
For who? The person chasing the bird?
There's a lot of flight involved there. It's a good thing. But we all know that's not our goal. It's really about thinking, I've said this 1,000 times, about what the birds do in the wild and trying to relate your enrichment choices back to that. There are so many different ways to go. It doesn't always have to be that tactile chewing sensation. It can be dietary, it can be auditory, it can be olfactory, it can be visual. Tactile is still important, and social enrichment is important as well.
And when you say social, you mean like with other birds or other people, or what are you thinking?
Well, with both. I mean, it's really important to think about these animals as a flock animal. Out in the wild, it's very infrequent that you find that lone bird. There are very few birds that are solitary. And so, especially with parrots, they are so oriented to the flock that whether they're, hopefully they're captive bred, but even, if they're not, they're still flock animals. And you either need to fill that role yourself with your family or you as an individual, or if you have other birds, you've created a flock in your home.
So I guess, though, if your birds don't get along, it doesn't mean you have to put them together.
Absolutely not. It can be a matter of a visual every now and then. If they're not in the same room, if they're in the same room, they don't have to be in the same cage. They can, maybe see each other. If there's a real problem with aggressive behavior or, things like that, then you can separate them, but you do need to fill that niche.
I imagine the auditory stuff would be important with that situation too. So if you have two birds that can hear each other, that might offer them something in terms of enrichment.
Absolutely. The auditory, we talked with Michael Schindlinger, or I did before, and auditory is so very important. That's their means of communication. That's the way in the wild these birds call over long, long distances. We've talked about the whole screaming thing, and people are like, I want to stop that screaming. Well, you need to allow that, or you need to again, fill in that need. And doing, different sounds from different birds. It doesn't have to be the same bird. It can be a different species. It can be the same species. And a lot of times I hear, then my bird won't talk. And if I play, same species vocalizations, they're happy with that, and then it won't learn to talk.
Isn't that interesting? Because you think of African greys who are notorious for picking up other bird sounds, but then they also, talk in that little robot voice and copy what people say too.
Right, and so it's really not true. It's not something that you need to worry about. I mean, you're talking to your birds all the time, as well as providing this auditory enrichment. You're actually auditorily enriching them as well. So, you can sometimes play predator sounds for them, not all day long. You don't want the hawk screaming in your bird room all day, but in small doses you can play those kind of sounds for them.
I don't know if we talked about this before, because at times when you and I have presented, the question of stress comes up, and people react very strongly to that word.
It definitely does. I've had the big no stress at all comment, and I've had other people that think it's okay. And the thing with stress is, in small doses, it works to help with coping skills, so that it's not when something out of the ordinary happens or when something major occurs in your bird's life that it's not a complete meltdown. It gives them some of those coping skills, and you don't want to flood them with a predator or with something that's stressful. But in small doses, and your bird, whether your companion can take it, how much is too much, and you can see in their reaction as well.
Yeah, that whole body language thing. Well, it's kind of like, I know we've done this at seminars too, where we've had like a little laser pointer and shown it up on the ceiling, and you kind of watch to see if a bird reacts, and most of the time, most of them will tilt their head and look at it. So it probably creates a little level of concern of, hey, what's that? But it's not the kind of thing where we've got a bird that's, flapping around its cage really nervous, and maybe that's kind of the difference in the levels. It's that sort of little, hey, what was that, is what you're aiming for.
Right. It just a passing glance, maybe, and I had Nikki out in the backyard the other day in a carrier.
Nikki or Kayik.
That's correct. I thought everyone knew that. But I had Nikki out, and he was in a carrier, and he was hanging out, and he had a little bowl of food, and he was eating, and all of a sudden he stopped, did the head tilt, and I'm like, what's he looking at, and he was looking out one of the little holes in the side of the carrier, and I looked up, and there was a hawk circling. Nikki's never seen a hawk before, but it was still that, oh, wait a minute, what's that, that exploration, and, he didn't melt down, he's still okay, but there was a little stress in his life for a few minutes.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And that was a visual stressor, which visual enrichment is so important too. I think sometimes we forget. We give them the toy, we give them the tangible, but that visual stimuli is so important too.
Well, people don't know this yet because I haven't told anybody, but I have a new cockatiel in my house. My friend Banana Puddin'.
Banana Puddin'.
And Banana Puddin', his cage is right by my computer where I work, which is also by a window. And so when I'm working, I let him out, and he runs around, and one of his favorite places to sit is on the windowsill. And he's got lots of options. I mean, he can go all over the place, lots of things to chew on and play with, but he loves looking out the window. He'll watch all sorts of activity out there.
Yeah, it's all about the view. I mean, these aren't, these birds are so stimulated
the
in the
TV
wild.
show? Is that what you're talking about?
No, we're not plugging other shows on our show.
Okay.
Come on. But, it's so important when you think about where they come from in the wild. These animals are in such a visually stimulating environment. You need to give them some of that. The walls in your apartment. I mean, personally, my walls are burgundy in some places, and so that's a little stimulating. But a lot of times people have the plain white walls. Maybe you live in an apartment and you're not allowed to paint or whatever. It's your preference, but you need to give them that visual stimulation more than just the walls outside the cage.
And something else I've tried is he has a number of toys, and I kind of rotate them, but I also change where I put the toys.
Mm-hmm. It's so important. It doesn't become cage furniture. That's the term that I like to use for it. Think about if everything stayed exactly in the same place in your environment all the time. It would get boring, and you have no control over where things move. If you didn't get to change anything, if you decided you wanted a chair someplace else, but you couldn't lift it or you couldn't move it, that's the same thing as everything staying in the same place. As far as the visuals concerned, too, I was doing a workshop, and a young lady said that she had seen posters that you could hang outside the cage, and would that be scary? If it were this big Amazon in a tree, would it be terrifying to your bird in the cage because they didn't have anywhere to go? And I think that brought up a really important point, that if you do visual stimuli or you do auditory stimuli and enrichment that are slightly stressful, you want to make sure that the bird has an out, that they can get away from it if they want.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I just thought of another thing that Banana Puddin' really likes. Well, I don't know if I can say he likes it, but he certainly reacts to it. Mm-hmm. He'll climb onto my keyboard on my computer, and I'll try to keep working. And what happens is, if I'm, like, say, on the internet and I'm clicking away and it's changing the scene on the internet, he'll respond to it. He'll actually look up and kind of stand up tall and look at it, and then when I push the button and it clicks to another scene, he'll jerk up again. So I don't know exactly what he's seeing visually, because they say that they have a different the flicker rates and all that kind of stuff with computers and TVs and whatnot. But he absolutely responds to the change of what's going on the screen there. It doesn't. I don't see it as something that he's finding as an extreme aversive, because he could absolutely go away if he wants to. Right. But he stands there and he looks at it and puts his little crest up, like, "Hey, what's that? It changed right in front of my face."
So we're going to change his name from Banana Pudding to Banana Gates or something. Yeah. He's all about the computer.
That's right. Sorry, all you Mac people.
Oh, that's true. But there are so many different forms, and one of them that comes up a lot is olfactory. And I think we've discussed this before, that people say, well, parrots don't have, there isn't any need for doing scent enrichment with them because they have such tiny scent receptors. My feeling is, when you think about some of the scents that your parrots have, I know you have an Amazon, and I'm sure that Tara has a scent.
Absolutely. I always talk about how, to me, the smell of Amazon sort of is like, mom's apple pie. It means love, because my Amazon is usually very close to my face and preening my eyebrows and eyelashes, and you can smell that scent that seems to come through the nares, sort of in the respiratory system, and I just associate that smell with good stuff for me.
Right, and so them having that scent, there's got to be a reason for it. It may be to let people know that other birds know that there are other animals in the wild. But, why take that chance that you're missing a whole type of enrichment that you could be doing with your bird? So offering olfactory, not overwhelming. I mean, we all know how sensitive they are to different scents in the air and things in the air. So you just need to be careful that you're not overwhelming them.
Yeah, and you can always check with your vet if you're worried about something not being safe. Actually, I think today Robin and I taught a seminar, and people talked about things like boiling cinnamon sticks.
Which I thought was a great idea, using natural oil, the oils that are in plants and things like that, boiling them like a potpourri almost, but just knowing what's going in there versus purchasing something or purchasing an oil to use.
Oh, I think they said orange peels too, very natural things. Things that are, safe and safe for you, safe for your bird.
Right.
But I agree, that thing with the scent, even if, there may be more information out there that some veterinarians could share with us, but even if parrots only are receptive to very few scents, maybe Amazons can only smell that scent that an Amazon releases. I don't know. I'd have to ask the professionals on that. But it is interesting that, in other species as well, macaws certainly have a certain odor to them. It's interesting that it exists.
Right. There has to be a reason for it, is my feeling.
So how do you mix it up and make sure that there's lots of different stuff going on in your bird's enriching world?
Well, it can get overwhelming. You're working or you're busy with your family, and you're like, okay, oh, well, I didn't do, olfactory enrichment this week. It's not a crisis, okay? What I suggest...
I feel like going, enrichment crisis, woo, woo, woo.
It's a dangerous thing. Don't let it happen to you. But, my suggestion is create a calendar. It's not, something that you have to follow. It's not a hard, fast rule. But do a calendar, and it doesn't have to be specific things that you're going to offer, but maybe you say, on Monday I'm going to try to put in a different dietary enrichment, a different, do some foraging stuff. On Tuesday I'm going to do auditory enrichment. And just do it that way and mix it up so that you're not always falling back on the easy ones. They're all pretty basic. Some, you get the bigger response from. This happens a lot, when I'm working with people in zoos and stuff, they put in that enrichment thing that gets what I call like the fireworks response. It doesn't always have to be like that. It can be something as simple as avoiding something in their cage. So you just want to, make a little calendar for yourself and try to, try to stick to it if you can.
I like saving, my dog Waylon, my 10-month-old puppy Waylon, he has a favorite toy that's this little ball that vibrates, and he just goes nuts when he gets to play with that. He'll just roll around and make this little howling noise and take it out in the yard and just sit there with it next to him. But if he gets it too often, it sort of loses that value.
It absolutely does, and I call that the favorites trap, that people fall into the favorites trap. You give the same thing over and over again, and it gets boring, It's like if you could have anything you wanted and somebody said you can have the same thing every single day and it went on for months and months, you wouldn't want it eventually. Things as simple as taking your bird out of the cage and moving around the house with it, having it with you in different places, that's enriching. It's a change of scenery,
It's also good for training. I actually have been doing that a bunch with Banana Pudding because I want him to be comfortable with lots of different environments, and so he's fairly adaptive to new situations. Basically, we're sort of generalizing his behaviors to new environments. So I like that.
Which brings us to the point that the training is a great form of enrichment.
It is. Maybe we should save that for after the break.
I think we should.
All right. Well, let's take a little break.
Stay perched. Wings and Things will be soaring back right after these messages.
Put on a perfectly possum pet party. Having an awesome birthday or adoption day celebration for your four-legged friend? Or just want a fun excuse to throw a fun party with your friends from the dog park? Deck out your party with Molly and Bandit Pet Party accessories. Party products designed specifically for pets. There are wearables, including adjustable pet party hats, bow ties, and tutus. The photo prop kits include funny glasses and hats. The party supplies and decorations include coordinating table covers, party banners, cake decorations, and treat bowls, cups, and bags. Everything you need to create great memories and Instagram-worthy photos. They're available in 2 colorful themes, Tropical and Fireman. It's a dog's life. Celebrate it with Molly and Bandit Pet Party at mollyandbanditpetparty.com/petlife.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
A Frenchman walks into a bar with a parrot on his shoulder. The bartender asks, "Where did you get that thing?" The parrot replies, "In France. There are millions of them." Don't have a canary. Wings and Things is back.
Welcome back to Wings and Things on Pet Life Radio. We're your hosts,
Barbara Heidenreich
and Robin Schwokis.
Well, we're back talking about variety and different things you can do for enrichment, and we also want to talk about different things you can do with training. I think people get stuck in training ruts, too, to be quite honest.
You see that behavior, and, I'm going to do that, and it's the common ones that you see because, people get, I saw that, I want to do that, and I want to train that. But you need to be creative.
Yeah, and I think, we're really at the beginning of positive reinforcement training, really getting out to companion parrot owners. We've seen it pretty prevalent in the dog training community, but it's still kind of new for parrot owners. And a lot of times, a lot of people are teaching our simple behaviors, myself included. I usually start with targeting because people are just getting started. We want you to have good success with your birds. And then another easy one is like a wave or a
turnaround.
Turnaround, it's a big old favorite.
Nikki's got the turnaround down. I'm very excited.
Hey, but your son, who's 12?
He's 12 years old, and he can do the turnaround. He gets all excited. Look, I had him, he did this for me, he did that for me. And the turnaround he's had the most success with. So,
which is great, right? Because we want your son and everyone else to stay excited and interested in training. And if they have success right away, that's that's awesome. So those behaviors are great ones to do, and a lot of times people like to label things like waves and turnarounds trick training. To me, it's just another behavior, but people think it's trick. It's it's a cutesy thing, but in fact, it does serve a great purpose of helping you get started in training, teaches your bird how to learn, and also helps you have a nice relationship with your parrot.
It definitely does, and I think too, the learning how to learn is so important. This is an animal that maybe hasn't been trained to do anything when you get it, and you want to know, okay, this is the best way that my bird learns. This is the best technique. This is a great reinforcer, things like that.
Plus, it's enriching, right? Because they're trying to figure out, well, what does that person want me to do? What do I need to do to earn that reinforcer? Is it this? Is it that? And a simple behavior like a retrieve or the wave or the turnaround are great ways to get that going.
And you're spending time, which is meeting that social need. When you're doing training, you have to be there.
That's true. Hey, there you go.
So you're filling that social need at the same time.
Ooh, virtual training. Ooh. That might happen soon. Look out.
We're going to come out with that next.
Yeah, that's our next product. Ooh. A lot of times, too, when we talk about dog training, people think of obedience training. And I'm not a big fan of the word obedience because it makes it sound like your animal has to comply, when in fact, positive reinforcement training is really about teaching your bird that it has choices, and if it makes certain choices, good things will happen. So hopefully it'll do those behaviors more often. But I tend to think of behaviors like step up, go back into your cage, maybe sit calmly on a perch when you remove the food bowls. Those might be what we would call obedience behaviors.
Well, I think, there are things that make parrot ownership easier for you and your bird.
Yeah.
It removes that kind of power struggle piece, and it makes it a positive environment for both of you.
Yeah, and it's just about reinforcement, but I think those are really important behaviors to get under your belt and have in your repertoire with your bird, because then you're not going to be going, oh, I can't get my bird off my shoulder, I have to do this little dance where I'm rolling around and I can't get the bird off my shoulder. But if you trained him to step up for positive reinforcement, you can teach him to come off your shoulder when you ask, you can teach him to go back into the cage, you can teach him that staying on his play stand is a great place to be. If you've got a flighted bird that's constantly flying to you because he loves your attention, with positive reinforcement training, you can teach him to go back to his cage when you ask him and to stay there for a little while and do something else, like play with one of his cool new enrichment toys. So those behaviors are great things to get under your belt as well. And then a lot of people who come to my seminars, they always get to experience all the medical behaviors that I like to share with everybody. A really cool kind of new thing in training parrots is to train them to cooperate in their own medical care. And one behavior that a lot of folks have gotten under their belt and is probably more prevalent is training your bird to be comfortable with a towel.
Which is so important, because that can turn into a really negative situation really quickly.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about before my having taken Nikki to the vet. And it was, he had never been toweled before. I hadn't done that because I wasn't anticipating that it was going to have to happen when we went. And it occurred in a really quick manner, and it could have turned into a very negative, long-lasting kind of reaction from him. So if you can do it ahead of time, by all means.
And they can. It's really a pretty simple behavior in many regards, especially if your parrot doesn't have a history with towels. If you start off on the right foot and pairing some good positive reinforcers with being around towels, or having your bird, follow a target to walk over a towel, gets lots of, maybe if he likes cuddles and head scratches, he gets that while he's around a towel. All those things can be a great way to get your bird comfortable with that. And that's a pretty, in my opinion, that one's not so challenging to get to. Some people have a little harder time with things like nail trims, but again, it's not as challenging as people might think. And in fact, that's one of my great joys, is that I get lots of emails and letters from folks who have tried this stuff at home after watching my DVDs or reading an article in the magazine, a success story from another reader or something, and they go, hey, wait a minute. That person was able to do it. I can do that. And they try it.
It's like when that light goes on, that moment when the light bulb comes on, that yes, this really works, and I get that with people on enrichment too. They'll say, oh, I tried this and my bird loved it, and I had never thought of that before. And, and it's just changing things, doing the little different things. And it's the same with training, I remember being in Houston, and it wasn't with parrots, it was with a mammal, and it was with tigers. And the young lady was training to do a blood draw, and we talked about it, and Barb was there, and we all talked about it, and when she got it done, she was like, it does work, and it wasn't a big stressful thing. And it's, it's just going through those steps and trying different things, trying, training something new. And if it doesn't work the first time,
think of another strategy. You might have been on a bad path there. Sometimes we've talked about it before that typically a novice mistake is to try and take too big of a step. You want to take real tiny approximations. And if your bird has had bad experience with nail trimming, then you might have to take some really tiny, tiny steps. But that's a behavior that I've actually been able to train in just a couple training sessions, 2 20-minute sessions. So I think sometimes we're a little apprehensive to jump into that one. We think it's too difficult. But, in brief, an easy way is just to train your bird when he goes to step up on your hand, is the moment that his little foot hits your hand, you bridge and you reinforce. So he learns all he has to do is put his foot on your hand. He doesn't have to step up all the way. And then start getting him comfortable with you touching his toes and manipulating his feet, but, continuing to reinforce him during that. And you start gradually introducing the nail clippers and again in tiny approximations. And I'm always careful just to take off the very, very tip so that it doesn't cause any pain or bleeding. And you'd be surprised how easy it really can be to get that behavior. So definitely training medical behavior, well, what I call medical behaviors, getting on a scale is a great behavior to train, and your veterinarian's going to appreciate it if he or she gets to see a nice, long, comprehensive history of weights on your bird. And for you, if your bird is ever dropping weight, it'll be a signal to you that, hey, maybe something's up with my bird. He's not showing symptoms, but he had a big old drop in weight. So.
And you don't have to count on that. Oh, he looks a little bit thinner today. Oh, he looks a little heavy. Because people, you get stuck in that. Oh, I know my bird. I know, how he looks and what size he's supposed to be. If you can get those weights, it's so much better for for the bird, and it makes life easier for your vet as well.
Yeah, no, and it's not that hard of a behavior to train if your bird knows how to target, which is another simple behavior to train. You can use that to have your bird walk across a flat scale, or you can get a scale that has a perch on it or put a perch on it, and for your bird it's just like stepping onto any other perch. You may have to watch his body language and make sure he's comfortable with it and take it in steps, but it's a real easy way to get a weight on them. Just make sure their tail isn't hitting anything and making that weight funky.
Yeah, because we all know you leave that foot off and you weigh less. Yeah,
I try to every time I weigh. Some other training that's going on out there is a lot of people nowadays are starting to have flighted birds. And so training flighted birds can be a whole nother challenge, because now you've got a bird that can go anywhere he wants in your house.
Behind the bookcase, those kind of things. It does happen.
On the computer, destroy the computer.
In the middle of something important.
Yep, fly on your head while you're, talking with your husband or something like that, all that stuff. So working with a flighted bird's another type of training challenge that people are getting into these days. And so again, that might mean things like training a strong recall, training a cue that means go to another perch, any perch I ask you to. Nice thing to train with a flighted bird is to teach them to poop over newspaper. So you can have perches with newspaper underneath them around your house, and when you see he's getting ready to poop, you give him a cue and he flies over there and poops on the newspaper.
There you go.
That's kind of nice.
Good one. And the other thing is flight is very enriching as well. I mean, obviously that's a behavior that we see in the wild, and if it's manageable for you and you're comfortable with your abilities and with your bird's abilities, then flight is a great exercise, and it is a great form of enrichment.
Yeah. Another thing we tend to do is in shows, which is a great thing to carry over into the home situation, is you can train flight patterns. Like you can train a bird to loop on cue, fly in a circle on cue, or fly through a hoop or something like that, all those kind of things. And of course, you can also take all those trick behaviors that you trained and modify them for flight. So if you've taught your bird to retrieve or play basketball, put a ball or something someplace, you can modify that into flying to a person and taking something from that person and bringing it back, or taking an object from you and putting it someplace else. That classic dollar bill trick that everybody's seen in bird shows is basically a retrieve.
Right. So. And some of the other trick training that we talked about, that you had mentioned, you can put those together and think of how impressed your friends and neighbors and relatives will be when you show them how intelligent your bird is and how wonderful.
Speaking of intelligent, one of my favorite things is to teach behaviors that involve a little problem solving, which ties in a lot with foraging toys.
Oh, absolutely. And when you think about, all the decisions and all the puzzles, if you will, that they do have to figure out in the wild, it's not... food doesn't come in little packages, it's not cut up up in nice pieces. They may have to figure out where it is and go foraging for it, or they may need to open something to get at it, and those kind of things can be trained.
Absolutely. A lot of people have probably seen the video clip of the Caledonian crows, which is pretty cool. They were there's a little research project on them and tool use and how they would take wires and bend them themselves to dip it into a tube where there was a worm or maggot, basically, down at the bottom, or grub. There we go.
Nice
Better
term.
word,
Yes,
grub. To get the grub out. And that's a little problem solving on the part of the crow. And we know that parrots are very intelligent as well, so they can get pretty creative in their ways of getting what they want.
I did see a cockatoo at the Houston Zoo that would use a cup. It was a little tiny, it could have been a nutshell or something like that, but to scoop up water.
I saw a Moluccan. He used to take a bead, and he would dip the bead in water and then throw it back throw the water down his throat like it was a
Toss one back.
Yeah,
There we go.
a little shot of water from the bead. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can train your parrot to do, and you can get creative there too. Another one that's pretty fun is discrimination training. So like teaching your bird to respond to certain colors or shapes and things like that. Those are fun challenges for trainers as well, because one thing that you can do to test yourself is, say you train your parrot to pick up the color red when you say the word red, like a piece of wood or something that's colored red. And then you might put other colors out there that are same shape but different color, and you have to be careful to only reinforce him for picking up red. If he offers anything else, then you don't reinforce. And then you test yourself by changing it up, and now you're going to teach him a different color. And then after he gets that color solid, then you put both of those together and make sure he picks the right one up on the right cue. So that's a good challenge for people who are feeling a little more advanced in their training and want to test their skills.
That is. There's another interesting training that you can do with, I've done it with a crow, not with a parrot, but object permanence. If you hide an object, will they know that it's still there, and will they go after it? And that's just a matter of training, that, okay, lift this or move that and see where things are.
Yeah, there's a lot more creativity that can be done beyond the wave and the turnaround and the target and the step up. And I think sometimes, because we still are kind of in the beginning of getting used to positive reinforcement training in the parrot world, we tend to, not think about what's beyond.
Right. And there's so many, different opportunities.
And here's a cool one. This I don't know that it's officially been taken very far, but there was a group for a while that was really talking about training parrots to do agility the way that we train dogs.
No, that only works with dogs. I'm sorry.
Only dogs. But I don't know that they got things kind of rolling, but I don't know that they ever kept it going. But I thought it was a really cool idea. It hasn't taken off yet, but maybe as more people become better trainers, they're going to look for bigger challenges. And these folks were thinking of different behaviors that could be part of sort of an agility competition. And what was really cool about it, I thought, was that their hope was that it would get people more excited about positive reinforcement training and help this virus spread, because I think it's a good virus.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I think that goes back to the chaining things together, putting the tricks that you've already got. Maybe you figure out a way to turn them into an agility thing, because some of the behaviors you're just asking for that wave, but it may be a wave and you're stepping over something, or your bird stepping over something.
Yeah, you do bring up a good point there. Chaining behaviors is another element of training that's above and beyond what some of these simple behaviors. And so again, I guess the point is that there's just endless things you can do as far as training, and same with enrichment. There's just so many options. Yeah, so we're really just at the beginning of discovering all these possibilities.
It's a matter of creativity.
Yes, it is. So I guess that probably covers our topic for this show.
It does. It was a big one, I think.
It was. So should we talk about some upcoming events?
Sure. For me, the next thing that's coming up is September 6th and 7th. Florida West Coast Avian Society is presenting their first annual Sarasota Parrot Symposium, and their topic this year is educating humans about parrots. I'm going to be speaking on enriching your parrots' lives. Sally Blanchard will be speaking, and Dr. Teresa Lightfoot. And then September 14th, the Connecticut Parrot Society is presenting their second annual Featherfest. I won't be speaking, but I'll be participating in that. It's in Cromwell, Connecticut, and I know they're going to have some speakers. Susan Chamberlain is speaking. They're having a raptor presentation there as well.
Ooh, raptors. Yay. Let's see, September 27th, I'll be in Las Vegas teaching a parrot behavior and training workshop, and you can find more information about that at lvbirdrescue.com. Then on October 3rd through 5th, that would be the Parrot Behavior and Learning for Veterinary Professionals in Denver, Colorado. This is at the Gabriel Foundation. I'll be speaking. Susan Friedman, Dr. Jerry Labonde, and Dr. Lori Hess will be there.
And on October 11th, I'll be at the Long Island Parrot Society at their Parrot Expo 2008. It's a great event. It's from 9 to 5. They have vendors, and again, I'll be speaking about enrichment.
And then November 1st, I'll be in Shreveport, Louisiana, teaching a parrot behavior and training workshop. You can find more information at acbc.net. And then in November, on the 8th and the 9th, it's our Parrot Training and Enrichment Weekend in Austin, Texas.
Woohoo!
Yee-hee!
Yeehaw!
Yeah, yeehaw is appropriate. So come on down and kick up your heels in Texas. And then we're going to go into some of our events for 2009 that are already on the calendar. I'll be in Connecticut teaching a day-long seminar on flight training, and that's going to be on March 28th. And then April 18th and 19th, I'll be in Toronto, Canada with Susan Friedman, and we're going to be doing I believe it's a 2-day seminar there on some new stuff that we haven't presented on before. For more information, you can go to parrotworkshops.org for that one. And then in May of 2009, I'm going to be heading over to Europe, and I'll have some more detail on those events coming up soon.
And then keep it on the calendar. May 29th through the 31st, we're doing the Best Parrot Conference in Edison, New Jersey, and you can check out bestparrotconference.com for more information and to register. One of the sites we'd like to tell you about is the Fort Worth Zoo. They have a great enrichment site. It's www.enrichmentonline.org.
And then for some recommended resources about training, there's a nice book called The Click That Does the Trick by Robin Deutsch, I believe is how you say her last name. And you can find that on Karen Pryor's site at clickertraining.com. And then there are some nice Yahoo groups about positive reinforcement training. One is groups.yahoo.com/group/clickbirds. And then the other one is all that same stuff in the front, except you end it with bird click. And one of those is operated by Linda Morrow, who's a very well-known positive reinforcement trainer down here in Florida. So you want to check that one out.
Okay, and the enrichment tip of the week. When you do make your calendar, remember that it's a guideline. It's not a rule. Don't let it take the spontaneity out of your interactions with your parrot. It's there for that day when you come home and you're in a rut, or you had a bad day and your bird's in a rut. It's not when you feel inspired. That's not when you need to look at it. So just, when you're inspired, try something really different.
Sounds good. My training tip of the week is about free shaping, which is not something I've talked about before, but a lot of times we're using a target or we're showing an animal a prop to try and get them to do something. But with free shaping, what you do is you just watch your animal, and when he does something, an approximation, if it's just by accident in the direction of you want, you bridge and you reinforce. So say, for example, if I wanted my parrot to, who was on a table, to walk over and touch, a bottle that was sitting on the table, he can wander wherever he wants on the table, but the moment he takes a step in the direction I want, I would bridge and reinforce. And what would happen is, if he takes enough steps by accident in the right direction, he'll start to make the connection. I'm supposed to go this way. So you're really removing any kind of prompts or lures to get him to do the behavior, just what we call free shaping it. So give it a try. It's kind of fun to play with. Yeah.
So we're just about out of time. Some upcoming topics that we're working on are what to do with a new bird, reading body language, baby parrots, and biting and aggression.
And if you have some suggestions for a show topic, feel free to contact us at robin@petliferadio.com and barbara@petliferadio.com.
And as usual, if you'd like transcripts of this show, please visit www.petliferadio.com.
All right, that's it for us. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Join us every week on Wings and Things and get a bird's eye view of everything there is to know about pet birds and how to make your frequent flyer a happy camper. Wings and Things, only on PetLifeRadio.com.